This is 6 Minutes, a seriously international daily newscast. It's Friday, March 21st. I am Cecilia, Laurent, Monpetit.
And I'm Jacob Shropshire. Folks across the islands of Micronesia are headed to bed, while those in Bermuda are headed to work. In Gabon and here in the World Crunch newsroom in Paris, it's just after midday. These are the latest headlines. Israel's cabinet votes to fire the head of its domestic intelligence service. Europe's biggest airport has been shut down after an electrical fire. And our daily quiz question comes from the cricket pitches of India.
Our top story today is Volodymyr Zelensky urging Europe to maintain pressure on Russia. The Ukrainian president called on EU leaders to step up weapons supplies, even as diplomats prepare for a new round of peace talks with the US next week. Addressing an European Union summit on Thursday, Zelensky also criticized Russian President Vladimir Putin for making, quote, unnecessary demands, while also failing to uphold an agreement Russia made to stop attacks on energy infrastructure.
Another way that Europeans have been considering ramping up pressure on Russia has been the seizing of assets. With the hundreds of billions of dollars worth of Russian assets already frozen in Europe since the start of the war, some policymakers say it's time to seize those assets entirely and sell them off. But in an article for French economic daily Les Echos, François Vidal writes that as tempting as this may seem, it would be an unwise move right now. Doing so, he writes, could cause a so-called triple boomerang effect. First, angering Donald Trump while he tries to broker a peace deal. It would also open the possibility of European assets in Russia to being seized. And thirdly, seizing assets would weaken Europe's financial reputation as a place to safely invest money from around the world. Under these circumstances, Vidal concludes, it would be wise for Europeans not to cross the Rubicon of seizing Russian assets. Still, he does note that in the current poker game, nothing prevents Europe from threatening to do so in order to strengthen its position and, when the time comes, to obtain significant concessions from Moscow in return. In the Middle East, Israel's cabinet voted Friday to oust Ronen Bar, the head of the Shin Bet domestic intelligence service, after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that he had lost confidence in him. Barr's ouster came after months of tension with the Prime Minister's office over an investigation into corruption and possible bribes of staff, which Netanyahu dismissed as politically motivated. Protesters in Jerusalem and Tel Aviv have been demonstrating against Netanyahu's decision to fire his intel chief, while also opposing the resumption of violence in Gaza. Indeed, outrage is growing around the world at Israel's ending the ceasefire this week in Gaza. Italian weekly Internazionale dedicated its cover to it Friday with the headline, "The Ramadan Massacre," and a photograph of a Gazan woman holding the body of a child in a bloodied cloth. UNICEF estimates that at least 200 children have been killed since Israel restarted its war on the besieged Palestinian enclave this week.
London's Heathrow Airport announced it would be closed all of Friday due to a power outage linked to an electrical fire at a nearby electrical substation. The outage, which is disrupting more than 1,300 flights at Heathrow, also knocked out power to more than 60,000 customers, with almost 5,000 still without power on Friday morning.
Now, let's take a closer look at what the international press is covering. Turkish outlet Daily Sabah is covering demonstrators who continue to rally across the country to protest the recent arrest of Istanbul Mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu. The allegations of corruption and aiding a terrorist organization are widely perceived as politically motivated against President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's main rival.
And the Canadian press is reporting that the country's new Prime Minister, Mark Carney, is expected to dissolve Parliament on Sunday and set a date for new national elections, likely to be held in late April. The country's Conservative Party has widely been expected to win, but the Liberal Party, which Carney became leader of when Justin Trudeau resigned, has seen its polls improve since Trump imposed steep tariffs on the United States' northern neighbor.
A report from UNESCO says that glaciers around the world are disappearing faster than ever, with the last 3-year period seeing the largest glacial mass loss on record. The 9,000 gigatons of ice lost from glaciers since 1975 are roughly equivalent to an ice block the size of Germany with a thickness of 25 meters.
We're closing things out today with a daily quiz question. which comes to us from the cricket pitch in India. India's official cricket organization lifted a ban on what ahead of the upcoming Premier League? Is it A. using metal bats instead of wooden ones? B. eating samosas to refuel during the match? C. using spit to shine cricket balls? Or D. doing the wave? C. Indian cricket's governing bodies say it was reversing a ban on using saliva to shine cricket balls ahead of the upcoming Indian Premier League. Players often use spit or sweat to polish one side of a ball to make it swing in the air when thrown, but the practice was banned in 2020 on fears that it would cause accidental transmission of COVID. The International Cricket Council made the rule permanent in 2022, but at least in Indian cricket matches, the practice is back.
That's the latest from around the world. If you liked this podcast, we would really appreciate it if you could help us out with a follow, a share, and a 5-star rating on your preferred podcasting platform. For more of the best of the international press delivered exclusively in English, visit us at worldcrunch.com. We'll see you Monday for another episode of 6 Minutes. Bon weekend.